Hi there, everyone. Welcome to First Thursdays with American Corporate Partners. I would like to tell everyone, first of all, welcome to Keyston and Matthew. But this segment is sponsored by American Corporate Partners. ACP's free mentoring program connects post 9/11 veterans, active duty spouses, and eligible military spouses with leading industry corporate professionals for customized mentorships. So find your next career with American Corporate Partners. As we get started today, for those in the viewing audience, please ask your questions in the comments section. And between our guests and the ACP staff in the chat, we'll make sure and answer all of your questions. So we've got a couple of great individuals that are with us today. We've got Matthew, who is the director of retail growth at Coca-Cola, who was Keyston's mentor. And Keyston, I'm going to let you explain everything because you really are an amazing person, and where you've taken your transition and what you have managed to start from a company perspective is really quite amazing to me. I loved reading your bio. So if you don't mind, Keyston, if you would tell us all about your military service, your transition, and what you've done, and why you chose to participate in the ACP program.
Absolutely. Thank you, John, and also thank you, Matthew. It's great to share the stage with Matthew. So my military service I started later in life. 9/11 happened when I was in college. Come from a military family, and they said, hey, it's going to be a long one. Finish your school first. You have the option, go in officer and enlisted. But then they all said, go in enlisted. Nothing wrong with the officers or whatnot. But so I was about 28 when I started service, and started as a medic. And then, after some time, switched over to intelligence, as a 35 Mike, 68 whiskey, and then 35 Mike. And it is some active time, and then also Guard and Reserve time as well. And my last station was out in California. I just had my first child, my first daughter at the time. And the wife, she's like, hey, you told me 5 years, and then 5 more years, and then we gotta move on. I still wasn't completely ready. I still love, military service. And then I was like, well, what am I going to do when I'm done? I'd already been working with a nonprofit helping veterans in transition services, had an affinity for tax and finance. I'd done that in my downtime. And so I was looking at, what that space would look like when I transitioned. So got out, went back to school, did still tax and finance, and I still hadn't found my groove quite yet. And so I was like, well, there's got to be a little bit more, because I'm employed, but as one of my other big brothers, I guess, would say, I wasn't gainfully employed. And so I wanted to make sure that I was utilizing all my resources and that were available to me. So I just started looking. It was like, okay, well, I like working. I like money. I like being able to support my family and go out and have drinks with my friends, so on and so forth. I was like, but I didn't necessarily see myself in the track that I was. And so I looked at opportunities, and ACP came across one of the emails that I had, because I was registered in Florida. I looked at Florida veterans resources, and they're like, oh, if you're looking at changing the career, or you're looking at even entrepreneurship, and, contact ACP. And I was like, whoa, hold up. Because most times it's like, well, if you're just looking for a job, but sometimes, veterans, or like myself, I was looking at, well, I have this biz idea, the industry that I'm looking at is kind of new, and I'm going to need some guidance on there, and also some business development things, because my education wasn't in business. Even though I spent time in finance and insurance, that still understanding was necessary. So filled out the application. The ACP is like, hey, want to be part of the organization. They had the questionnaire. It's very, very simple and self-explanatory. And literally within, I think, maybe like 4 hours, I got a response back. It was saying, hey, welcome. Where are you located? Let's fill out this questionnaire. Let's see where you want to go. And so I filled out both the employer side as also the entrepreneurship side. because I'd already started the process of business and with some friends and other veterans, but it wasn't complete. We hadn't had anywhere near the traction, or it wasn't as refined as it is now. And so, I started that path. And then they asked the questionnaire about mentors, what type of mentor that I was seeking, in what industry, the gender, age, hobbies. It was, I was actually real impressed about how they categorized, so to make sure it was a perfect match. It was like Match.com or one of those other type scenarios.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
but no, it was beautiful. So after that, they come back and say, hey, we have a mentor. It's perfect for you. Let us know. Here's the bio, and then just get back to us. And then I saw Matthew's bio. I was like, oh, geez, this guy's heavy hitter. I was like, sounds good, and I sent a response. And yeah, then they did an introduction to Matthew and I, and then we scheduled our first meeting almost about a year to the date. Uh, and so that's how we started off.
Man, that's great, and I really appreciate the fact that, or how American Corporate Partners did their due diligence in talking to you, particularly to make sure that they understood exactly what your needs were, and then went out and found Matthew as your mentor. So Matthew, Keyston said it right. You're a heavy hitter in Coca-Cola, and particularly in their emerging market that they're trying to reach to. So, uh, what prompted you to volunteer to be a mentor with ACP, and how have you managed to fit that in with your time for your regular day job?
It's awesome questions. I'd first like to thank everyone, current and past service people and their families for that service. It's not something I personally have had the privilege of doing, although I come from a family of military individuals, and so the values that they've instilled in our family, duty, service, and things like that, in general, make me inclined to want to serve. And I was at a point in my life where I was looking for opportunities to serve. I think there was a turnaround a little bit with some of the opportunities I'd been working with in the past, where we did some one-on-one mentoring, sort of in person or sort of in the sports field, that the events of last year kind of made some impact on. So we wasn't able to do some of that. And actually, through Coca-Cola, was introduced to ACP. They'd shared to all global associates, and I think specifically in North America as well, that these were some really amazing opportunities. So when it came up, I jumped on it. And to echo Keyston's experience, the screening and the kind of input of information that a person in a mentor role is able to fill and share out, I thought was really, really thoughtful, really deliberate, and enabled this kind of a match. Making the analogy to so I wouldn't really be able to help somebody who was looking to go into insurance or into law. So the fact that they kind of knew my background and the backgrounds of the folks who were looking for some mentorship obviously started us off on the perfect foot. And just work-life balance-wise, I think personally, this they all kind of work together. As an individual, I think, like, I'll want my life's accomplishments to have given more than I've consumed, right? And it's super simple for me to kind of keep calibrating that, and to be able to say, like, doing something fully in the service of others is kind of like one of my personal ambitions. So I actually, just make room for that in my personal life, and make sure that my professional life is balanced, and everybody I work with is kind of on the same page with me as it pertains to that.
I think you bring up a great point, Matthew. It's important to note that there are great companies that are behind the mentors as well. There are certainly folks that mentor because it is solely their cause, and there are companies as well that provide that opportunity for their employees to be mentors for people like Keyston. So I think that is a fantastic way to demonstrate for everybody the dedication of both the mentors and the companies that they work for with American Corporate Partners. I can truly appreciate that. So, Keyston, how has the mentorship program experience been for you? And you know you've been doing this for about a year now, right? You're just coming up on the end of the 1 year program. What
Yes.
was it that you took away? Some of the things that you took away that have been important to you for your successful transition.
Oh my goodness. There's too much, I would say. We have to go at least a half a year to get close to it. But you know, Matthew talked about work-life balance, and so that was one of the very first things that kind of tackled in this whole mentorship is the work-life balance. Coming from military where you're giving it 100% plus. They always say you can't get more than 100%, but you're giving it your all. And so when it came to business and work, that was the exact same thing, and there was an imbalance there. I'm not gonna lie, I was just work driven, and so that was one of the things that I wanted to address both with myself and then also in the business that we were looking at erecting to make sure that not there's there's not just balance in operations, but there's also balance in every individual, whether it be employee or staff or co-founder in their lives. Otherwise, they're wasting the time and they're going to drive themselves to a very untimely end, and that's not necessary. And so the very first thing I got from Matthew was how he looked at things and how he balanced it, and he put things in perspective and categories to allow me to navigate that space. And then from that mentorship, it was from the very first meeting. He sent out the document, ACP. They give parameters for kind of what you want to accomplish in this year period of time, month by month scheduling. And Matthew looks at this and he creates this document. So, and we did a simple interview, just kind of get to know you. And he's like, well, what do you want? And he's like, well, here's some of the things that I can contribute, but it doesn't make any difference unless you tell me what you want. And so that's how we started. And it was just pretty much, I told him about, I wrote a short paragraph as he identified, what does it look like 6 months, 3 months, 12 months from now? And it wasn't just, just for employment. It wasn't just for business. It encompassed, my actual life and my well-being. And it was, that first paragraph. And I looked back at it because we always do, a couple of months or a couple of session review just to check and see where we are. And I look back, and the person that I am now, I've grown, and it's totally different than the person there in just how I view things. And so, I'm not going to read the whole paragraph to you, but the very first paragraph was talking about, who I am as an individual, as a man, as a husband, as a father, as a co-founder and partner in business, and what I wanted to be, looking forward, some months down the line. And apparently with the way I wrote it, I wasn't that. So that was one of the biggest takeaways. So when I look back at it and I look at the growth and development, it all started with, how Matthew took the mentorship as it's not just an individual getting them employed. It's not just getting them into a business or making their business successful, but looking at the actual individual, and that's what I found very unique about mentorship, because I've had, had mentors before, maybe they weren't identified as that, or people that you look up to and ask for advice. But this type of mentorship, the way it was structured, and then also the manner in which, Matthew took it to improve, my quality of life as a whole was very unique for me. So that trickled down into the approach that I took with, even looking at other jobs. So even with ACP, even though I was looking at entrepreneurship, and that was the basis of the conversation that Matthew and I had, after the first 2 or 3 iterations, but I was still attending the ACP workshops that, ACP has, for individuals looking at getting certain industries. And I was particularly looking at finance and insurance, very small, close-knit sessions with 30 or so plus veterans, with 2 or 3 professionals from a particular industry. And it's very fruitful. Even the information, how to structure your LinkedIn, how to structure your resumes, how to contact and network, these things were echoed in the as we're going through the process. And then back to the remaining parts of the question, John, is moving forward. It was structured nicely. We stayed to tax. Matthew made sure that we achieved goals. We set real smart goals, and then we made out a plan and validated them and see if it was going to be beneficial. And then when the obstacles came, I was like, hey, this is what's happening in my life. This is what's happening in business. There's the intersect. And then he was he's very Socratic about it, and a lot of the information that he gave, he always came back with a question with me. And I was like, hey, this is going on. He's like, well, what do you think about this? I was like, why is this guy asking me a question? And then, so as I start responding, I was like, oh, okay, I got it. I see what you did here. But yeah, no, it was a very, once I figured that out, I'm pretty sure he knew the answer. But the process of how he allowed me to arrive at that answer, I think contributed to growth and development. And one, believing in myself, which is another part of this mentorship, which I really appreciate, because I've done business, done a lot of things, but when it comes to running a business and kind of being in the front, that's kind of not my forte. I've always been the situation that I sit intelligent. You sit back and you get information. You ask the questions, and then you watch and you observe. But even through that process, he would have let me arrive at some of these conclusions, and then from there be able to stand a little bit and then move forward, apply those lessons. And then the next time we'd meet, he goes, well, how did it go? He was like, oh, well, this is how it went. And then, we'd address the next question. The next question I had with another question. And then that's kind of how the dynamic went, and it was very nice to arrive at those questions. It was very nice to hear his input, from his experience. And then once we got to a point where I had some traction, had a little bit more confidence in myself, and I was coming up for a business. Actually, I got to tell you this, John. So we got into a pitch. So I was looking at raising capital for a business, right? And there's a pitch contest, and I was like, okay, well, I'm just going to go and do it. I don't like public speaking, and he's like, well, I'm going to do it. But I never really created a pitch for a business, never really done all these things, so he's like, well, let's do it. And so I created the pitch. I pitched to him. I gave him the structure of the pitch. And then before the big event, the finals event, he created a mock pitch session for me with, some friends and business owners that he knew. And they sat there and critiqued my pitch. And then I was able to, revise that before I actually had the pitch with that company. It was fantastic because a lot of the things that I had just gone out there, I probably would have been blindsided, and it just would have been a disaster. But so, taking the time, he didn't have to do that. That wasn't part of, the mentorship. He gave a whole bunch of guidance leading up to that. And even to me applying to get out of my comfort zone was through this series of conversations that we had about building the business and networking, and, how he viewed marketing and business structures, and as you're pitching to individuals. So that was, absolutely a fantastic thing that he did. And there's another thing with the after the pitch that was very successful, moved on to the next round, still talking to those individuals, and we have some business relations letter of intent that are actually on a table. So that's been extremely fruitful at the end of last year. But at the end of last year, I was also studying for my PMP exam, which is Project Management Professional exam. Horrible test taker.
Yeah. First
time go in the military, everything. But when it comes to tests or whatever, it's a long test. It's like 4-hour test. Yeah. It is just horrible. So I failed it the first time, just egregiously, just nervous. The computer, everything that could go wrong went wrong. Computer, it was during COVID, so we're doing a remote testing, and so I'm logged in. Whoever was supposed to be logging me in, they didn't log me in, so I'm waiting 15 minutes. I see my clock ticking, then it cuts down, then I finally get in, and then so I'm just like, internally freaking out, but I'm sitting here. Well, just stay there. I'm at the right place. I'm at the right time. We'll get through. So I take the test, fail it, just a little bit shy. And had to let Matthew know the next day because I had to lick my wounds or whatever. And he's like, well, just do it again. But, even before that, he's like, well, how are you, studying for the exam? Yeah, I was just like, I don't know, and that was one of the questions I asked. Like, how do I study for this exam where they're just going to ask you about knowledge and the test is nothing like it? And so he gave wonderful recommendations, pumped me up, gave me some ideas about how to go about for the next exam, and I passed it. So the whole mentorship was about. It wasn't just about the business. It wasn't just about particular employment. But this was one of those things that I wanted to do and I aspired to do and set these goals. And he worked and walked us through. I say walked us through passing that exam because it was a highlight of the moment. He was extremely excited, for me for that. And then we got right back to business of running the business and then moving forward. So that's a long way around to answering your question, John, if I did.
No, you absolutely did, and I really appreciate that, and I know that a lot of people in the audience appreciate it as well because it really is a journey, right? It's not a straight point A to point B walk that you take on in life or in professional life, however it goes, and I think that um, it really means something to me. I know it means something to our audience as well to hear your particular journey with Matthew and um, how that really helped get you through it. And I would like to say I loved your talking about the summary that you guys do every couple of months or so because I think at least in my particular experience. Uh, I was pulled aside by a mentor when I was still in the military at one point. It's like, John, you walk around with this little green notebook and you write down notes and about things that you need to do or that you need to have other people do. And how often do you go back and review those notes and figure out whether or not the tasks that you needed to do or you needed your team to do were successful if you're just looking at what is right in front of you instead of evaluating what you did. So I do want to ask you a question, Matthew. Luke Flatabo brought it up in the chat a minute ago. So Matthew, how did your experience? Did you experience a willingness of your colleagues and friends to help you with Keyston's progress, particularly with the Shark Tank like pitch contest?
It's a great question. And by the way, I'm still trying to figure out who's like the protege and who's the mentor here. I think I have to wedge in the fact that I've learned so much from Keyston and from this experience. I'm a better person for it. So anybody kind of going through the mentorship process or thinking about volunteering or jumping into it, do it. And especially do it here because I think, tied for first for how valuable support of any population could be. It's young people and our military and our service people. So, but to the direct question, my folks were super willing and super excited. I pitched it to them first as a chance to be a shark. So I actually was going through our emails and our notes from this last year. June 23rd was the day we met, actually, Keyston, last year. And I found the prep where I was asking my friends to be part of this process. And I said, your chance to be a shark, right? And the business people, they love this stuff, right? The other piece, though, is if you go back, just like kind of always do, what is it you're here to do, and ask the right questions. I encourage anybody to kind of keep like a personal board of directors at all times. Find out who will give you the truest, most transparent, radically transparent feedback to any question that you have, or even maybe unprompted, give you that feedback, folks you can trust, and maintain that group of people so that when opportunities like this come along, it's kind of a no-brainer. So I'm lucky enough to have a group of folks in my life that where when something like that pops up, everybody's kind of excited to jump in because we all kind of nurture each other.
Yeah, great. I really I love the way that you approach that. Matthew, can you tell us, are there either with Keyston or previous sessions that you've had with proteges, what are the topic areas that you feel transitioning service members or military spouses typically need a lot assistance with? Like, you really notice things about salary negotiations and benefits or networking, credentialing, that type of thing.
Yeah, I think it's a really good question. And going back to starting with, well, what is it you're here to do, or what is it you're trying to do, or what do you want? I think people in general, and possibly folks in a major transition from military to civilian professional life, need to have some of that figured out. I think we get in these relationships where it's like, okay, the setting is we're here to help, or we're here to talk about what it is folks need, and then you kind of just jump into the most immediate issues, like I'll show you my resume, or how's my LinkedIn profile look, or kind of start doing these really busy things, and you maybe lose sight of the bigger vision of like, where is it you're trying to go? So I see that, a lot of folks might need some help with some direction there. And I think if you're looking at a sort of a corporate setting that you're looking to go into, or something that's like really different than working in the military, serving in the military, some information about how that goes, right? The politics of any organization, or navigating the dynamics of interpersonal relationships when folks are incentivized or motivated differently, and there's a lot of them, and you've got different organizations, different teams trying to work together towards the company goal, while we all obviously satisfy our group and individual goals. That can be a little different, I think, from at least what I've learned from folks like Keyston in past mentorship relationships with service people. I think the dynamics are a little different. And then there's another piece where I think there's, so that's two. Three would be what I've learned from Keyston, incredible leader. I'm learning how to be a better person at work and a better leader at work because of Keyston. But there are different ways to motivate folks, I think, in these different arenas that I think we should be talking about. From what I've learned, not firsthand, there's definitely like the appeal to leadership. You're in a chain of command, et cetera. Doesn't necessarily translate into the public sector, and where you've got to motivate people, either your peers, people who work for you, people on different teams. There's a little bit more of a not strategic approach, but there's a different approach to figuring out what motivates them, how to recruit a team of people around you, get them motivated to accomplish the group's goal, and then share in success and celebrate. Those things are like these really constant processes and efforts that we have to take. And I think, having those types of conversations with an ACP mentor is pretty helpful.
Yeah, that's great. So Keyston, let me ask you this. First of all, I would be absolutely remiss if I didn't give you the opportunity to talk about your business that you started with your partners. So tell us a little bit about that, and then if you don't mind, how has the mentorship that Matthew's given you really put your business in a position that it would not have been without your mentorship from Matthew?
Sure, John. Also, I saw a couple of comments in there I did want to talk about. They asked about, and this kind of ties on to what Matthew was saying about perspective. Transitioning, as a veteran, it can be tough. And one of the biggest things, that I dealt with when I was going back to school was, okay, I'm older. Everyone else is much younger. I feel like I'm behind, so what? That was one of the things I had to deal with. And I was Matthew's like, so what? You aren't behind. You're just older. Allows you to focus a little bit more and really drill down into what it is that you want to do. And it gives you focus. The military gives you the ability to, learn how you focus and learn how you actually stick something out. And so, the way I looked at it is like, okay, well, it allows me to actually excel a little bit more, whereas previously I didn't know what it was that I wanted. And so now you're picking up tools and resources that are going to be directly, impact you directly and almost immediately, because you're picking it up as you go, taking some of the, military training that you have. But I guess that was one thing I will say is like, you aren't behind, and everyone I think needs a mentor. It doesn't matter if you're looking for a job or looking at being in a business, get a mentor. As Matthew said, have that board, your own personal board of your business and personal growth and development. It's only going to help. And then some of the folks were saying that, yes, mentors, being in the military allows you to be a mentor, because you're going to sit there, you're going to listen if you're really serious about it, and you're going to apply those lessons, and you're going to see lots of great results. And that was one of the things that I had to deal with was, and Matthew touched on it briefly, that colleagues, coworkers, folks that are in the, in service. And when you're in business, you got to motivate them differently. It's not like, hey, the sergeant says you got to do this, corporal, or, first sergeant says to do this, you got to do it. No, there's no one over them. There's no Uncle Sam. There's no Article 15 to say, if you don't do this, you're in this, you're in regs and whatnot. So that was a very interesting learning process. And so that brings us to the business. We started as, we're vertically integrated, the hemp and cannabis company. And so we acquired licenses in hemp and then in cannabis in a couple states. And that was a space that we wanted to operate in just because, hemp has helped benefit, my own physical well-being as well as some of the other veterans that we partnered up with. And it's opening up in the country. So I was like, okay, well, let's go down this path. We already have some traction. And through this whole process, we changed our name because, through sitting down and meeting in this mentorship program, we're looking at viability of our business. Is like, well, there's a lot of operators in this space. There are a lot of individuals who had similar names. And so we wanted to create a space that is our own, our own little blue ocean. And so, Matthew, with this mentorship, we help navigate through trademark, as well as getting involved in other accelerator programs, involved in accelerator program, Founder Institute as well, to help gear the business, help with some of our business structure. But yeah, and he's helped out with how I navigate with the business partners, good times and bad times, legal documents when business partners want to, leave or it's not working out the way it works out. How do we, he says you have to keep recruiting. You got to keep recruiting business partners, and you got to keep recruiting your employees and keep re-engaging them to the mission, because we always got there, because we had a similar mission. In the military, your mission is your mission. Whatever your mission you're going in, you're sworn, you raise your hand. That's your mission. You're going to stick to it. Everyone knows to it, right and left. But as Matthew said, in civilian world, sometimes the mission gets lost. There's so much noise out there. And so that was one of the biggest lessons that, I had to learn and then started to apply, and saw lots of traction within our business, Gallantry Industries, in, keep recruiting our business partners, keep recruiting our board of advisors, keep recruiting our employees and staff, and because the job that we're doing is, creating a space for community members and veterans to be gainfully employed, not just in hemp and cannabis, but in other businesses. That hemp and cannabis industry, there are over 500 jobs in the industry, that are not plant touching. You got accountants, you got managers, you got architects, drone drivers, all sorts of ancillary support that's needed in this budding industry. And so being able to navigate that with an individual who comes from a traditional and a very, high level traditional corporate position. And so their perspective is not just local or regional, it's international. So it helped me, scale, help me articulate how we want to scale our business to the partners. And then it trickled down from there. So.
That's awesome. So I want to be conscious of both of your time, because I really appreciate you talking to us, but I know that you have day jobs to go back to. So I'm going to give each of you the chance, and let's start with Matthew. What are your last words that you'd like to give to the people in the audience, either from a corporate potential mentor perspective, or for the people in the audience that are wondering if they really need, if there really is something that a mentor like you through American Corporate Partners can help them out as they transition?
Thanks, John. I think the word mentor can be daunting. So take that word out of it and think of yourself as being helped or being someone who's helping. And if you are either a person who can relate to having needed help or having enjoyed helping someone, you should do this. Answer is super simple. Once you're in the relationship, if you're a mentor, like we've said a bunch of times, ask a bunch of questions up front, like discover, get to know, and have a relationship with. And before you give any advice, ask yourself, do you really understand the problem or understand the situation? And if you're a protege working with someone, if they're not the right person, address it. Don't waste another year of your life. If you're not paired with the right person, it's totally fine to say either, hey, I don't think you really understand what's going on. Can we recalibrate? or just go back to the organization and say, hey, this just isn't a match, because it has to work for you. It doesn't have to work for the mentor in this situation.
That's great advice. And I love that American Corporate Partners is open enough to provide the materials and structure to help the mentor guide the protege, but also that they're willing to go back and revisit the relationship if it's not a positive one for the protege. So Keyston, let's tell us, what are your final thoughts today?
Yeah, I'm going to echo what Matthew said, but also, if you're a veteran seeking employment or entrepreneurship, or even though if you're in the middle, just get a mentor. Contact ACP, get a mentor. It's a simple, easy process. Everyone needs help, and there's nothing wrong with it. And it's, I guess in military terms, if you don't have a mentor, you're wrong. Is simply as way as I could put it. If you're looking at being successful, improving your life, just go and do that. And ACP is wonderful. They have Cody. I would say thank you to Megan and Allie and Cody as well, because throughout the whole process, they've always emailed us and checked up on us. And Cody, I probably still owe you an email. He's like, hey, how's it going, guys? What have you been up to? And I know we just dumped one time. We just dumped it. Oh, this is what we've done. He's like, oh, okay. But no, the structure is fantastic with ACP. And, as Matthew said, if it doesn't fit for you, make it fit. It's for your own benefit. It's the same thing I learned, Matthew, instructed in business. You got to make it fit for your business, but make it fit for you. And so, ACP is real good. They're very active in saying if it's if things are working, and if it's not working, how they can address it. As far as giving resources, also reading material, even hobbies and activities. I know we couldn't do much of it because of the pandemic, but there's a whole gambit of resources available to veterans, with ACP outside of the mentorship program as well. So it just take advantage of your benefits, whether it be VA benefits or just benefits with organizations like ACP. Just do it.
Yeah, fantastic. So I want to thank both of you for spending time with us today and sharing your experiences. It's really important to let others know, how ACP can really benefit transitioning service members, veterans, and military spouses. So for those in the audience, keep asking your questions in the comment section, and the ACP staff will keep answering them. And remember, visit acp-usa.org, and you can register or just learn some more about the organization and the services that they provide, some of which you don't even need to register for. ACP AdvisorNet is a great resource for people to ask questions from mentors across the country. So thank you all. See everybody on July 1st for our next First Thursdays with American Corporate Partners. Take it easy, guys.
Thank you.